Alright, so I'm riding the V8f. I got that last winter for my wife, actually. I was thinking that she would ride with me more. She really likes the M10-4. I taught her how to ride the M10-4 in like 5 minutes or something. It was ridiculous. And then I taught my son how to ride the M10-4, and that took like 10 or 15 minutes. But they both picked it up extremely quickly. And then when I hopped on the V8f, I was like, whoa, this is totally different. It's all different muscle groups, and it feels more top heavy, and you have to really utilize your legs a little more than just your feet. Where the M10-4, you really just work your feet a lot. And the M10-4, as you're going up and down the streets, it'll wiggle between your feet, so it just kind of does its own thing. And the tire is so wide, it doesn't even matter. But I'm moving really fast. The V8f is totally different. It's very stable because it's taller. It's got the taller wheel. And it seems to make a huge difference in smoothness. There's a couple complaints, though. The tire's really not wide enough. And I'm worried about getting a pinch flat. Because if I get a pinch flat, I have to basically disassemble the whole thing. It's kind of ridiculous. Whereas in the M10-4, not only is it tubeless, which is a big deal, it also is easier to fix. It's literally like 2 nuts, and then the wheel pops off, and then there's just one cable that powers the wheel. So it's actually really simple to work on. Whereas on the V8f, it's got so many plastic bits and bops, and the way it's put together is just kind of a nightmare. And we dropped it at low speed. I'm talking like 3 miles per hour, maybe 4 miles per hour, like less than jogging speed, when my wife was trying to learn. And it already has, major cracks and scuffs, and some trim, like a little red trim piece fell off. Let me show you, actually. That little red trim piece popped off, and I have to glue it back together. It's kind of a weird little piece that they added, like an accent color. I might just take it off. But it's a really nice wheel other than that. Although I do think that there is not much waterproofing. They claim a bunch of waterproofing, and there's a gasket, but the gasket is literally coming out between the shell, where the shell comes together. Sorry, I had to notify a car I was turning. So this the little white gasket material is coming out between where the shell comes together, and it's kind of worrisome because we've only dropped it once, and it was at like walking speed essentially, and it already has all these physical issues. Which is hard to believe. I've tanked the M10-4 so many times. The thing's ridiculous. I mean, it is beat up now in a lot of ways, but the headlight was never broken. The taillight was never broken. The pedals seem to be okay. They do squeak a lot. And there's like a little bit of play in the pedals, so I'm not sure if that's the pedal hangers themselves or if it's the axle. I reached out to, I think it was Jason at eWheels, asking him. I actually got it from Alien Rides, and I was asking Jason at eWheels. I said, "Hey, is this normal? Do I need to replace the axle, or is it like a frame thing? Should I buy a new frame?" Because at the time, Alien Rides was quoting me a new frame because they won't cover it under warranty. The frame's kind of bent, and it was bent during shipping, and they still won't cover it, unfortunately. And now it's bent even more just through use. And they basically said, yeah, it's a known issue. Begode has no intentions of fixing it. And because of that, I have to pay out of pocket, essentially, to replace the frame. but the frame hasn't been improved in any way, so I don't know why I would bother, because it's just going to break again. Waving at the UPS driver. I'm in some random neighborhood, actually. I took a break from work, I'm on lunch, and I'm just rolling around this neighborhood. Gasp, I'm going the wrong way. On the v8f that I have right now, the tire is so skinny. I think it's like 2 1/4 or maybe even less, like just 2 inch or something. It might even be less than that. But it's really skinny, and I get really nervous, especially with things like crushed stone and gravel paths and things like that. It doesn't do well on those. Whereas the M10-4, it does a lot better on that kind of stuff, because just the wide wheel helps big time. And it's faster to correct too, so you can correct it and brake it. You can brake faster and things like that. I just tried to brake on this wheel really fast. I needed to brake, and I don't have any pads on here or anything like that. And because I have the wheel tilted forward like 4 degrees or something, I actually almost fell off the back of the wheel because it doesn't have the torque to brake. So I was just about to fall off the back of the wheel. I caught myself right at the last second, but I thought that was really weird that it just didn't have the ability to brake like the M10-4 does. That one can stop on a dime. It's amazing. Oh, I just hit like middle part of the battery, and now I could feel the power sag. It's really bad. That happens a bit on the M10, but it's not nearly as bad actually. It's mostly this is not the way I want to go, is it? All right, I'll go this way anyways. Yeah, the M10 definitely has a better battery. I think it's like 700, I don't know, 50 watt hours maybe. And this one's like 544. And those I think are 50E cells, the M10-4, and then these are like the older LG cells. I forget what they are. They're not as good. So if you like try and demand torque from this wheel, I think the battery is one of the big problems. I think the motor could probably supply it in spurts if they designed it to. But whoop, can't go straight. There's a car coming. But it's not he was speeding, by the way. It's definitely not a performance-oriented wheel. Everyone says it's a great beginner wheel. I think I would disagree with that. I don't think it's a very good beginner wheel. It has many issues, specifically like in terms of being a beginner wheel, and then it's kind of a useless wheel other than that, because it's hard to fix and replace because it's such a complicated wheel. And I mean, it goes pretty fast. I think I have a speed alarm at like 18 miles per hour, and this will match the speed of the M10-4 essentially, but this will feel a lot smoother. This guy just blew through the stop sign. Nice job, buddy. Yeah, so everyone recommends this. It does have a trolley handle, which is pretty nice, but I really don't use it very often, and it's taller and heavier than the M10-4, so like picking it up and moving it around is actually more difficult, even though it's only a few pounds heavier. I think you're like 5 or 6 pounds heavier. It could be more, I don't know, but it feels a lot heavier because it's bigger, physically bigger. So when people say, oh, this is a great beginner wheel, I would definitely disagree. It's an okay wheel. It's definitely on its way out. I don't think many of the shops are selling them anymore because I think InMotion's trying to stop production, essentially. So I got a pretty good deal on this one. Now the M10-4 I'll definitely keep, because that's like the perfect throw in the back of your car. Especially if you go like camping or something, it's perfect for camping. You could just put it way down in your wheel well or something like that, almost under the chair of, like the driver chair. You could just put it right under that. It's so small. And you wouldn't, if you went to like a campsite, you wouldn't even need to charge it, because it has like a good, I don't know, it probably has like a good 15 plus miles of charge on it. And if you're going slow, it's got even more. It's probably, I don't know, maybe even like 20. So you could just go up and down the campgrounds, whatever. With a thick tire, you can go over all the crushed stone or the mud or whatever. It's pretty versatile, actually. I imagine it's the reason why people liked the one wheel so much, is because it was small, but it had a big thick tire, and it made just random terrain a lot easier. Because not everything's pavement, or at least smooth pavement.
Oh, look at those lights. A little Christmas ride, and be careful. Zoom, zoom. So cool. Who's that, Dad? He's a midlife crisis. Who's that, Dad?
A lot of the roads up here have just tons of potholes and unfinished work, or they build like a new drain pipe or something, and they just totally destroy the roads. Now it's got like this dip or this whoop where they put the new tar on, essentially. It's almost like a speed bump, you know? But this wheel is kind of fun to ride. Oh man, I think the 16-inch tire is fun to ride. So I'm tempted to get another 16-inch wheel. And for a while there, I really wanted to get the patent. But after hearing what people have said about like the amount of screws and things like that, I just don't want to get involved with repair in that way. Because you're going to have to repair every wheel at some point. If it's difficult to repair, I'm going to be less inclined to repair it, essentially. So, and I'm also tempted to get a larger wheel just for more stability. I know a lot of people said they really enjoy the links, especially when they go off-road. And that's a huge wheel, but I think having a taller diameter really makes the difference. I think people appreciate that when they're going over rocks and roots and things like that. It's probably why the Master was so popular too. Even though it's like 100-something pounds, a lot of people rode it on trails, which seems crazy to me, but I guess they made it work. Look at this. That's a hell of a camper van, huh? So many people with so much money, it's amazing. Just like unlimited money out here. It's nuts. When I moved from the south, now granted I lived in like the middle of nowhere, essentially. I didn't grow up there or anything. I just happened to move there when I was in my 20s. And then when I moved from there up to New Jersey, it was ridiculous how much more money I made. I went from making, well, I'll put it like this. I ended up making twice as much money as a part-time employee. So I worked part-time for like, I don't know, I think I did for like 3 years, and I just like lived life, like that. I wish I could do that again, but now I have the family and the kids and things, and it's actually, I'm not like struggling or anything, but it's tricky to like find a way to get more time back, because I'm kind of signed on to like these hours, and I work, I get this much money and I'm paying for this many things, kind of thing. And now that I'm like in my 40s, it's all of a sudden like, oh, I got to think about retirement, blah, 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 So it's tough to justify just doing a part-time thing instead of a full-time gig. So I will say, riding this, I've had so many waves and nods and smiles, and people have said things, all positive. Like hundreds of people over the course of the last couple of years riding these things around. And I don't ride them daily or anything, but people just really appreciate something unique and fun like that. Especially the M10-4. People can't believe what it is because it's so small, especially when it's under me. I guess because I kind of hide it with my pants or whatever, so they don't even know how I'm moving, because it doesn't look like a one-wheel, so it's confusing. I'm getting hit by these little speed bumps. And so it's got that big headlight too, which is like a really cool feature. I think it makes it look really unique and like almost like a steampunk aesthetic. It's really neat. And then if I ride this wheel around, it still gets looks, but people kind of like smirk at it like it's almost too stupid to look at because it's kind of like plasticky and it's got a bunch of weird lights on it and it's kind of geeky, I guess. It's very geeky. Gotta get out and ride. Sometimes I force myself to ride and then I know I did the right thing because it's always better to ride than to not ride. And it's been tricky up here. The weather is just terrible. But today is finally a beautiful day. It's actually 80-something degrees. I can't believe it. 2 days ago, it was 34 degrees in the morning, and today it's 80. It's just like, that's nuts. But I am going to take all I can get on that one. Because good weather is hard to come by sometimes, especially when you're trying to coordinate it with your free time. All right. Do I do a final loop? Guess we'll find out.